Okay, so we are live now on LinkedIn and on Facebook and YouTube. This is a little bit different from what I usually do. Usually I'll bring on an interviewer, a guest, interviewee rather, and we'll discuss something relevant to the nursing home space on the Nursing Home Podcast. Today we are recording episode number 63 of the Nursing Home Podcast. That's a pretty high number for a podcast. Getting out to episode 63. It's been around 18 months or so since the podcast has started, and I wanted to do one solo episode as requested by some of the listeners. And first and foremost, I want to thank all of you for supporting the Nursing Home Podcast. We're closing in now on 20,000 downloads, and I'm humbled, grateful, somewhat proud of the accomplishments that we've done together, and upward and onward to 100,000 in the very near future. And we will get there as we continue bringing this information, this much needed information, to those in the nursing home space or those who interact with the nursing home or senior care space. The average podcast only lasts a certain number of episodes, and we're still going strong. This is, like I said, episode 63. We have several more in the queue, and we don't plan on stopping anytime soon. So let's take a step back and let's analyze what is going on here on the Nursing Home Podcast. We're obviously filling a need. Something's happening here. So why is this resonating with so many people? I want to figure that out. What is the value that people are getting from this? Why are people telling me that they're discussing the Nursing Home Podcast? They're sharing particular episodes with others on their team. And why are vendors now starting to reach out, people who service the industry, and they want a piece of the action as well? They want to come on the show. What is going on here? So to understand what the Nursing Home Podcast really is all about, I started the Nursing Home Podcast as my quest of understanding and sharing this information of what it means to operate a nursing home. What does it mean to work in a nursing home? What are the myths that people say about this industry that the media eats up? We all know how the media loves sensationalizing what goes on in nursing homes, especially during COVID. And I'm not saying that there's no issues, but if you want to know real information about nursing homes, you want to know real information of what does it mean to work in a nursing home? What does it mean to place a loved one in a nursing home? What does it mean to live in a nursing home? What type of regulatory compliant environment happens in a nursing home? You can Google it, and you get. In my experience, I did, and I wanted to. I was a struggling administrator. I wanted to know more about the industry, and other than a few unofficial, groups on social media which were sharing information on a as needed basis, I didn't find an organized place where all the information was there and the relevant information was there. So the goal of the podcast was to discuss relevant and challenging issues in simple terms that you can immediately understand, and most importantly, can immediately implement and take action on this. What has happened, this has also given industry leaders the space or the platform to share their unique knowledge, experience about this industry, and has given them the opportunity to share that with the listeners as well, which has really been a phenomenal experience for me. And many guests who have come on the podcast have commented to me that they've been interviewed on TV, they've been interviewed on radio before, but there's something unique about this experience. There was something unique about coming on the podcast where we got to a level of understanding. We got to a certain level of depth within the conversation that they haven't had before, and they've thoroughly enjoyed that experience. Let me share with you one particular story, true story. This goes back to episode number 5 of the podcast, where I interviewed Mark Zimmett of Zimmett Healthcare. Now, I have no personal relationship with Mr. Zimmett. I don't have a relationship with the company, but PDPM, patient-driven payment model, well, PDPM was new, and there was so much talk about it, and the question was, what does it mean for the industry as a whole? What does it mean for operators? How do we implement with PDPM? I really wanted someone with real experience to be able to come and break it down for us. And I asked him to come on the show. So I reached out to him on LinkedIn. We did all our back and forths. Finally, we confirmed the date and the time. Super excited that we'd be able to have him on the show. Once that was confirmed, I asked him a simple question. I think we were on the phone actually. And I asked him, why did you agree to come on the podcast? For all the reasons I just mentioned. You don't know me. You have nothing to gain from this. At least that's what I thought. And I'm super excited that you're coming on, and please don't change your mind. But why? I was very surprised by his answer. His answer also opened up a whole new world to me. And his response was, this is what I live and breathe all day. Clinical reimbursement, the nursing home industry, operational challenges. This is my world. I've been doing this for decades. This is what I love. And this is what I talk to anybody who would listen. If you're telling me you have a targeted group of listeners and this is something that would benefit them, and I could come on for a half hour, 45 minutes and educate them about this, it's a no-brainer. I would love to. This is fun for me, even if it's just you. I don't know if you said that part, but point is that people are willing to share. People want to share. So if you look back at episode number 5, we did a really wonderful episode with Mark Zimmett. Later, we were able to get Stephen Littlehale, who was from Point Right, who went over to Zimmett Healthcare in episode number 9, excuse me. And finally, we were able to get Mark Parkinson to also talk about PDPM. Mark is the former governor of Kansas, as well as the CEO of the American Healthcare Association in episode number 10. And they all helped us understand what PDPM means from a 40,000 foot view down to the nitty gritty operational challenges, changing in the MDS workflow, and all of that. So this is just one example. I've received so many messages on LinkedIn, off of LinkedIn, of people who've discovered this for the first time. This is a blessing for nursing home administrators, for operators, that there's a place where we're discussing real life issues, which are really relevant to people in this space. And this feedback is really priceless. For a content creator, you create information, videos, podcasts, articles, everything you create from a content creation standpoint, and then you throw it out to the world and you put it all over the place, hoping that you're actually filling a need. At the end of the day, when a content creator sees that their creation is being used the way it was intended to be used and it's hitting its mark, that is such a satisfying feeling, and that really makes it all worth it. And apparently Google is noticing this as well. Like, if you Google nursing home podcasts or senior care podcasts or whatever, something like that, you'll see that we come up right away. And there's a reason for that, because the information that we're creating really is solving this problem in a very real way. Now, over the last few months, especially during COVID, when those who service the nursing home industry don't have trade shows to go to, they're not traveling as much. I've been inundated with vendors wanting to come onto the show, and they realize that this is a place where they have a lot of decision makers are listening right now and are understanding that this is a place where real information is shared. And vendors want to know that, I service the nursing home industry. I sell things to them. I understand them. I'm here to help them. Let me use your podcast as a platform. So worry not. This show is not turning into Shark Tank, and we're not just allowing people to pitch whatever they want on the podcast. However, there are many vendors that have sometimes decades of experience in operations, and then they became vendors. And there's so much that they can share, or even just from their standpoint as a support service to this industry, there's so much value and important information that they share. And we've had some fantastic conversations with some of our supporting partners to the nursing home space. So I will tell you that if you're a listener to the podcast, expect even greater content, even more value going forward from the podcast. Keep it tuned right here. Don't move your dial, if you remember what that is. I hope I'm not dating myself with that. And if you sell to the nursing home space, if you're a vendor, here's a shameless plug. Reach out to me, email me, Shmuel, SHMUEL, at snfmarketing.com, or send me a direct message on LinkedIn. And let me know if you would like to partner together. And we can have a conversation to see if you qualify to for a featured episode on the Nursing Home Podcast, where we will bring out elements of your business that you may not have even known existed beforehand. So by all means, reach out to you. And to everyone who's listening, everybody who's watching, thank you so much for supporting me. I'm so grateful to God for giving me this opportunity to fill this void in such a unique way, and to be able to share and support and help people. I'll end with one story. This is something that just came to mind. I don't remember after which episode. I would have to check my LinkedIn direct messages. But there was, after one particular episode that we recorded live, somebody reached out to me, a nursing home administrator, and said that COVID was getting to me. My building went through really tough times. It was not manageable. The regulatory compliance environment, all the rules that kept on changing, it was almost impossible to keep everybody safe, keep everybody alive, and follow all the rules. And this was the culmination of years of frustration, where for those of us who are boots on the ground, we know how sometimes you can get hit from all angles, and it's a very, very difficult role to fill anywhere in the nursing home space, but specifically as an administrator. And he said that after listening to today's episode, before listening to today's episode, I was ready to throw in the towel. I was going to say, forget it. My career is over. I cannot do this anymore. I'm going to work in my local supermarket. I'm going to find something else to do that doesn't have this level of stress, that doesn't have this level of fulfillment probably as well, but I just can't do it anymore. But after listening to your episode, after listening to this podcast and hearing the information that you shared, and realizing that we're not alone, and realizing that there's a support system, and there are many people in the trenches, and we all have the same issues, and it's not me, and it's a real challenge, I've changed my mind. And thank you so much for putting out that episode. That is what makes this all worth it. That's what makes this show exciting. That's what makes it fulfilling. So again, if you're interested in having partnering with the podcast, reach out to me directly on LinkedIn or email me, and we can definitely discuss that. If you know somebody that's interested in partnering, this is something that we're looking into to help them grow as a business, to help them support the nursing home industry that could use all the help that it can get, and maybe even more importantly, to share a perspective which has not been previously shared on this show, to give you the most well-rounded view of what this industry is all about. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. Thank you so much for supporting the show. And we're onward, looking forward to getting to that 100,000 download mark. If you know someone else in the industry who may be interested in the podcast, who you think that this is something that they can value from, by all means, tell them to head over to the nursinghomepodcast.com. Very simple way to find the podcast. And there you will find this podcast and all the previous episodes as well. Thank you so much, and have a fantastic